So I wanted to introduce all of our locations that we have. We have 4 locations in California, one here in Sacramento, California. We're also in San Francisco. The Center for Land-Based Learning is at the War Memorial. And we also have Foundation for Women Warriors in San Diego, as well as the Los Angeles Veterans Collaborative that is meeting at the Bob Hope Patriotic Hall. And going a little bit further north of us, Alaska. We also have Operation Mary Louise, and we've got Las Vegas, She Serve Sheroes happening. And then in Texas, we have the Women Veterans of San Antonio. And in Houston, we have Grace After Fire, as well as the Houston Veterans Chamber of Commerce. And then we have in Detroit, we have Women Veterans Strong. Then in Massachusetts, we have the Veterans Administration. And we also have in Arlington, the Military Women's Memorial, in addition to all of the others that are watching us online. So as you can see, we've got a lot of locations that are watching us today. I also want to thank our sponsors, Veteran Benefits Guide, as well as Outfront Media. We have recently started a partnership with Outfront Media. And with that, on Outfront Media, we had over, everybody can remain because if you're on mute, or if you can just turn off your camera because that interferes with everybody else viewing, please, we greatly appreciate it. So with Outfront Media, we had over 99 billboards, 9 cities, and with over 40,000 plays. So we had women veterans that were featured on our billboards throughout the U.S. and bringing more visibility to women veterans. So with that, I would like to go ahead and make sure we stay on time with that. If you don't have the agenda, get the agenda. You can utilize the Whova app. You can ask our speaker questions. You can interact with everyone else on the app as well. And with that too, I'm going to kick it off to Jen, and then we're going to have a 5-minute break so that way you can do what you need to do. And then we'll come on with the next speaker, 5-minute break, the next speaker, 5-minute break. And then after that, we will come back where I will moderate a panel with the 3.
Now, which one's the full screen?
Then from that, we will go ahead and close. And we have a special premiere event screening of Idlewild, and that will take place after I close. So I want to hang on for that as well. So with that, Jen, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to you. And so you can go ahead and share with us about becoming the warrior strategy.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or wherever you might be in the world. So kicking this thing off, what I want to talk to you about today is actually becoming a warrior. Okay. And many that are already on this call probably are warriors, and you might not even know it. So I'm going to talk about some of the strategies that we can
turned up as far as we can
overcome our obstacles.
TV for some reason.
So for me, this is where it all started. The 1983 Barbie dream house. Now, when I was a little girl, I saved up all of my allowance. I did the dishes every night, and my room was spotless. I even offered to mow the lawn, but I was still just too short. You see, I scrounged every penny that I could. And I remember that day, and I remember that feeling of finally having enough cash so that I could go to Toys R Us and purchase this enormous box. I brought it home on a Saturday morning, and I played with it all weekend long. In fact, when Monday morning rolled around, I did something a bit drastic. I lied to my mother. I told her I was sick, too sick to go to school, and I knew that if I complained enough, I'd be able to stay home alone, undisturbed by others, and continually play with the dream house. I lied to my mother. I risked everything. I risked getting caught. I risked getting grounded for life. I risked losing the dream house. But this is what you need to understand. The dream house, it wasn't for Barbie. Oh no, it was much more than that. It was for me. You see, this is what I would do, is I would build it and then I would tear it down. and then I would reconstruct it, and then I would demolish it over and over again.
What's that?
Barbie never actually got to live in the dream house because he was always under renovation. You know, as an adult looking back on this, I realize this is one of those defining moments that have helped shape who I am. I'm an engineer and I love to build. This sparked an interest and a passion in me that I didn't even know I had at that age. And this is what I'd like you to do today. I'd like you to start to think back, way back, and start to remember those things that you did as a child that sparked your inspiration. Maybe you also had a dream house and you loved to build and tear it apart. Maybe you had Legos. Whatever that was, start thinking back to those interests that we had as children, because those have helped shape who we are today. Now, as children, we had these grand dreams, but as adults, our dreams are a little different now, aren't they? You know, I've gone around the world and I've started to ask people, tell me about your goals. Tell me about your dreams. And they told me, you know, I'd really like to get that raise, or I'd like to make it to the C-suite. There's this hobby that I've really been wanting to take up. Some had really grand dreams. They wanted to change the world and they wanted to make it a more fair and equitable place. But then I started to ask them, tell me about your fears and your challenges. And what they told me fell into two buckets. Number one, what if I'm just not good enough? Or number two, I just don't have time. But you see, going after your goals and dreams, it requires a change to your status quo. And I believe that we can all be agents of change in our life. And we can do that if we take on a warrior mindset. Now, a warrior mindset is not about grabbing a sword and slaying everybody that gets in your way. Technically, that's assault, probably murder, and you're going to go to jail. But what a warrior mindset is it's a choice. Because you see, I've discovered two myths that are holding us back. Two myths that are stifling our ability to go out and do great things. So with that, here's myth number one. Maybe I'm not good enough. If you have these ideas inside yourself, you can't even think about going forward and doing great things yet. You have to start with you. And a lot of times, these type of ideas, it's coming from imposter syndrome. Now, pretty much everybody has had imposter syndrome from one time to another. Here's a great example. Mike Myers, wildly successful actor. He has a Hollywood Walk of Fame star. He's worth millions of dollars. You can probably put in the chat like what your favorite movie was. But he once told the press that every morning he wakes up and is afraid that the no talent police are going to come in and arrest him because he's not funny. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that's imposter syndrome. It was first proposed by Clans and Imes in 1976, and they postulated that those that experience the imposter phenomenon believe that they're not that bright and have fooled anyone who thinks otherwise. Look, it's okay that if you've had imposter syndrome. I've been researching this, and almost 82% of the entire world has had imposter syndrome from one time to another. Men, women, old people, young people, it doesn't discriminate. So many people have had imposter syndrome. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? So, fact number one, warriors have learned to lean into their strengths. Now, there are many ways that we can get over our imposter syndrome. I have a really good friend, and whenever he has his imposter syndrome, what he does is he takes his book and he starts to read it. Because what he has written in this book are each one of his wins. So for instance, if he had a really good day, maybe he did something extraordinary, maybe he did something ordinary. What he would do is he would take his book and he would write it down. So whenever imposter syndrome started to creep back up on him, he would grab his book and he'd start to read all of his wins. Now, another way that we can do this is what I do is I just go over to the printer, I grab a clean piece of paper, and I just start to write down all of my accolades. I write down, you know what? I had time to actually work out this morning. You can even start with the big ones. I graduated from UC Berkeley, and I did not become a hippie. That's a big deal. I also made a US Navy captain. You know what? I had time to walk my dogs today. I won the 4th grade spelling bee. Write all of those accolades down. Because as you start to read what you have written, something happens in our brain. We go from, I don't know, to, maybe I can. And you want to know why? Science. Neuroscientists at the University of Tokyo have found that the simple act of reading what you have written triggers in our brain what they call coding. And so this coding happens in the hippocampus. This is where our brain stores all of that information. So as we start to read what we have written, we start to feel those elations again, those obstacles that we've overcome in the past. Now, this is the really important part. When you're writing down all of those accolades, I want you to make another column right next to it. And I want you to write how. How did you do these things? Are you smarter than you want to give yourself credit for? Have you mastered the art of communication and you're able to do incredible things with your team? Start thinking about how you did these things. And so this is where the warrior mindset starts to come in. A warrior mindset is all about realizing who you have inside. For me, imposter syndrome is sort of like this mean little voice telling me, you're not good enough. You don't belong here. Maybe you should just quit. Just give up. So there's 3 things that we can do about this. Number 1, realize that it is happening. So often we get so caught up in our brains and our brains are just running away and we're having all of these thoughts and it's just chaos in there. Stop and realize that your brain is running away from you. Now, you kind of have to train yourself for this. But once you start to see these signs that, yes, my brain is running away from me, just stop for a minute. So number 1, realize that it's happening. Number 2, scientists have also found that if we are able to envision something, it helps us conquer that problem. So when my brain starts to run away from itself, I put a name to it. And that name is Bob. And there's nothing against the Bobs of the world, but when my brain starts going crazy, basically, I just tell myself, you know what? Bob is running away again. And so this helps me basically disassociate myself with that whole feeling. So number 1, realize that it's happening. Number 2, put a name to it. So start to think about what is the name that you are going to give this sensation of your brain running away. Maybe it's Bob, maybe it's Karen, maybe it's Sue or Joe or whoever it is. Put a name to that sensation. And number 3, realize for this mean little voice, you have a counterpart, and that's your warrior. Think about what you have done in your life. So many of us, you know what? We got through boot camp, we got through OCS, we went through a lot of trials. What got you through that? That's your warrior. So remember when we went through and listed all of those hows, how did we do this? Those are our strengths. Study those strengths because that's where your warrior comes in. So when Bob starts to say, you're not good enough, put your warrior on, remember your strengths and realize, no, I am good enough. I am here for a reason. Look, imposter syndrome, man, it affects everybody. Like I said, like 82% of the entire world. And you know what? I still get imposter syndrome from time to time. You know what? I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and I started to look around at all of the other speakers, how accomplished they were, how many books they've written. I thought, man, what do I have to give these people? And that's when I remembered, you know what? I am here for a reason, and I have a mission, and that mission is to help people. We need to understand what triggers these feelings of, I'm not good enough and I don't belong. And that's when you have to realize, find that other counterpart, find that warrior within you, put that warrior on. Because you can either stay with your status quo, or you can put your warrior on and you can go out and do what you need to do. So next. Myth number 2. I'm just too busy. Anybody here ever feel that way? Yep. So for all of these non-starter excuses, this goes back to that myth. We make up all of these things. I'm too busy. I don't have time. Because whenever we make up these excuses, it stops us from going forward. Look, we all know how to prioritize. The military was really good about that. But has anybody here spent maybe a little bit more time on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, as opposed to actually writing out their plan? You don't have to self-identify. There are days that I would rather do my taxes than pick up the phone and call a potential client. We don't want to do the hard things. We don't want to do the uncomfortable things because they're hard. We're afraid that we're going to be told no. We're going to be afraid that, you know what, we just might fail. Well, we need to move forward past that. You know what, so many times we stop ourselves from going forward because if we never move forward, we will never know the pain of a possible future failure. And it's okay to be afraid. We all have fears. And I'll share with you one of mine. I'm afraid of hummingbirds. Yep, I know. But have you ever had a hummingbird come up really close to your eye? Like, I'm afraid they're going to poke my eyes out with that pointy little beak. And I know that it's irrational. And I looked it up. It's actually a real thing. It's called columprophobia. And I know that it is completely irrational because I looked that up too. According to Google, hummingbirds don't actually attack humans. Well, I want to give you some other fun facts about fear. So, did you know that 73% of the entire world is afraid of spiders? That's a lot. 1/3 of the populace is afraid of flying. 9% of the populace is afraid of giving up chocolate on a daily basis. Honestly, I thought that was going to be higher. And 3% of the world is afraid of eating leafy green salads. And I know that sounds crazy, but my friend Doug is one of them. But apparently it's only the leafy green kind. Macaroni salad totally passes the test. Now, while I'm making fun of these fears, I have one more that I want you to consider. 49% of the entire world is afraid of going after their goals and their dreams because of a fear of failure. 49% that admit that they don't want to go after their goals and their dreams. Look, there are real fears out there, and it's not all just hummingbirds and salads. There are real primal fears. But if those fears are stopping us from going after what we really want, that's no longer okay. So we have to retrain our brain and start to think about, what if we succeed? If you succeed, will you be more financially secure? Will you have more freedom? Will you finally go on that trip that you've always been wanting to? Think about it. What if you succeed? Not what if you fail? And a lot of times when we're doing these type of things, you know, it's because we're doing it for the first time. Yeah, we might fail. But you know what? We have to pick ourselves back up and continue on. This is all part of the warrior's journey. Yeah, we're going to fall, we're going to fail. The question is, will you pick yourself back up and continue on your mission? So next. More macaroni salad. So fact number 2, warriors may be afraid, but they choose to move forward. Now, as a motivational speaker, I can stand up here and list thousands of people who have overcome their fears so that they can get to their goals. But today is not about them. Today is about you. Every single person that's on this webinar, no matter where you are in San Diego or on the East Coast, today is about you. What does it take to move you forward? And I'd like you to read this from Martin Luther King. You just have to take that first step. So what I've developed is my warrior's path through fear. So first, breathe. Yes, I get it. We all breathe or else we wouldn't be standing here. I get that. But what I'm talking about is just slowing down for a few minutes, taking a few deep breaths and letting our mind and body settle. We have these grand dreams, but at the same time, there's so much that gets in their way. Work, life, phone calls, Zoom calls, milestones, deadlines, all of it gets in the way. And we just don't have time to stop and be calm and plan. I urge every single one of you, take just 15 minutes a day to just unplug. Go for a walk, do yoga, read a book, no matter what it is. Because when we just slow down enough, what happens is that activates the parasympathetic nerve system. This is our rest and digest system. You didn't realize you were coming to a science thing, did you? No, what this does is it helps us focus. And it helps us be more determined and motivated for what we need to do because we're able to clear our mind. So again, just stop for a few minutes and breathe. Next, courage. Find your courage. Now, there's different types of courage. There's physical courage and there's moral courage. Physical courage. Think about running into a burning building to save somebody. Then there's moral courage. Moral courage is typically what we need when we're trying something new. You know, we've got scandal and loss, and will people accept us if we make these changes in our life? Look, I can't tell you how to find your courage. You're going to have to find that for yourself. Find that spark that lives within you. The one that says that, you know what? I can do this. I will take that next step. From courage comes confidence. And confidence keeps us moving forward. Next, plan. Okay, those of us in the military, we are really good at planning. We got op plans, we got all kinds of plans. So this is actually one of my favorite. And one of the ways that we can do this is we have to backwards plan. So say you're part of the 5% of the world that's afraid of heights, and you decide, I'm going to get over those and I'm going to go skydiving. All right. Now, you don't just put on a parachute and jump out of a plane. You have to plan. You have to find a plane that's going to fly slow enough so that you don't get sucked into the engines. You're going to need a parachute. You're going to need a cool looking outfit like this guy has on. And you're going to need a group that's going to be able to teach you how to parachute. Now, what do we do? What are those very first steps? Look, Make the first step so incredibly easy that it seems silly not to. Make that first step just picking up your phone so that you can like look something up and find out who's going to be able to train you. Again, make those tiny little steps to get to your goal. And I'll go on record and tell you, I do not believe in leaps of faith. Leaps in faith are scary. And a lot of times if we try to leap, we're not going to make it. Plan out your goal. Small, successive steps. And whenever you complete a step, celebrate. The Harvard Business Review recently found out that seemingly small events at work had huge emphasis on people's morale. And that was celebrating the small wins. You see, our brains are absolutely wired for rewards. And what happens is that whenever we do this, it releases dopamine. That's from the hypothalamus. This is what motivates us. It's what gives us the courage to keep going forward. So celebrate those small little incremental steps as you get toward your goal. And finally, never give up. As you're going toward your goal, realize you're going to fall. You might fail along the way. And you need to ask yourself this question. Is it worth it? And if the answer is yes, never give up. You know, for some of the people, the path to success is absolutely clear. But for some of us, it's going to feel like a hedge maze. You go down one alley and then you hit a dead end. You take a left when you should have been going to the right. You might even have to backtrack, and that's hard. Pivot, but never give up. A couple years ago, I decided that, you know what? I have this passion inside of me, and I want to help people. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to become a professional speaker. And I decided to do this in January of 2020. I know, awesome timing, right? Perfect time to become a public speaker right at the beginning of COVID. I had 3 conferences all lined up, and they all canceled on me. I had to pivot. I had to figure out how to use Zoom and Teams and all of the other things in order to try to stay relevant. I even went to school to try to become a professional speaker. They actually have master's classes for that. So I took one of the master's classes. I had to pivot. And man, there were days when it would have been so easy to just give up. Fight through these feelings of wanting to give up. This is what's going to separate you from everyone around you. When everyone else has decided like, no, I don't want to do this, realize you have something in you. Pivot, but never ever give up. So this is what I call my warrior's path through fear. And we're going to go back to this again. Realize you can be okay with your status quo. There's nothing wrong with that. And what I'm asking of you is not easy. There are going to be days when it's just like, man, I don't know if I can do this. You're going to want to acquiesce. You're going to want to give up. So you can either stick with what you have going on and where you are in your life, or you can put your warrior on and you can go forward. So I have a saying, and so probably many of you have seen this before. Fate says to the warrior, you cannot weather the storm. But the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Look, there are days when I'm sitting at my desk and I just think, man, I don't know if I can do this. And then I just have to remember, you know what? No, I am a warrior and I am that storm. And I tell myself this over and over again. And you know what? That's what really gets me through it. Find your own mantra, or if not, just remember that you are a warrior and you are the storm. And so I'd like you to read the second half of Martin Luther King's really great quote. You just have to take step after step, and you will get there. Make them small. Celebrate them along the way. So that Monday morning, as I sat there looking at my glorious Barbie house, already showing the signs of multiple renovations,
You got
I
it.
realized it wasn't perfect. Not yet. So I jumped up and I ran down the hall and came back armed with a pair of scissors and Scotch tape. And I very slowly started to cut the floors apart. And then I started to cut the rooms apart. And as all the parts and pieces lay in front of me, I realized I can build this back better than the manufacturer had ever intended, because I love to build. And just like this Barbie house, we can rebuild ourselves over and over again, refining as we go. We have the capacity to become agents of change in our life. We have the ability to do something daring and a little scary outside of our box. And we have the ability to make things better than they are today. So with that, I'll say thank you very much.